Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 12. Sri Shuka said, Once Hari did at early dawn awake, eager his breakfast in the wood to take, and blew his bugle to waken his friends, and with them and the calves he forward wends. Now thousands of boys came to join Hari, who were equipped and dressed attractively, each one a cane, bag, flute, and bugle bare, with thousands of calves, each in his own care. Now Krishna did his own herd of calves bring, which were beyond all count and reckoning, and with his friends and all their calves proceeds, and here and there enacts his childhood deeds. Although the mothers with finest raiment had dressed the boys, they sought to augment themselves with soft leaflets and tender blooms, pigments, gunja berries, and peacock plumes. Some boys another's bag would confiscate, which would the other boy infuriate. Then to a further distance they would fling, and with laughter again the bag would bring. If Krishna to a distance goes away, the beauty of the forest to survey, they approach, eager, and to touch him try, and me first, joyfully they cry. Some wind their horns, some on bamboo flutes blow, some sing with the bees in tones high and low. To coo like kokila birds some began, and some boys after the birds' shadow ran. Some of the boys playfully imitate the noble swan's posture and regal gait. Some of them stand still and silent remain in emulation of the feathered crane. Some with the peacocks dance, some climb the trees and pull the tails of the playful monkeys. They imitated how the monkeys crept along the boughs and from the branches leapt. Some of them to imitate frogs contrive, and croak, and into the clear waters dive. Some of the boys at their own echoes rail, and thus in playful excitement regale. Thus he who is the source of ecstasy, as conceived by the learned devotee, who by divine attendants is adored by those for whom he is the supreme Lord, and those by his Maya who are beguiled consider him as but a mortal child. These boys enjoyed such high felicity due to abundant heaps of piety, the dust of whose lotus feet is not gained in many births of hard penance maintained. The great yogins who can control the mind, that almighty being still cannot find. Yet he himself, by ineffable grace, reveals his person direct, face to face. How can the fortunate state be expressed with which the dwellers of Braja are blessed? And now a mighty sinful demon came, who for his dread deeds went by Agha's name. He could not tolerate the playful joy of the children, and came there to destroy. E'en as the immortals who quaff elixir awaited his death fraught with anxious care. He was moreover Kamsa's henchman true, and brother of Baki and Baka too, who came to Braja on Kamsa's commands and met their certain death at Krishna's hands. He thought within himself, "This is the child who both my brother and my sister killed. Therefore, to please the departed, I will this boy and Bala and all their friends kill. When these boys as votive offerings serve, the death rites of my dear ones shall observe. The cowherds of their vital force bereft will die as body when the life air has left, since offspring represent their vital breath. Deprived of these, they will be done to death." Deliberating thus, the wicked one assumed the monstrous form of a python, a yojana in length, of mountain size. His cave-like jaw was open to the skies. His rolling bulk along the path unwound, and waited his prey spread upon the ground. His lower lip upon the earth was spread, his upper lip the clouds, and full of dread. Like a cavern his mouth was dark and drear, his gruesome fangs like mountain crests appear. His tongue was long and stretched out like a road, hot wind his breath, his eyes with fire glowed. All the boys, on beholding this, did ween it was of Vrindavan a sylvan scene, that likeness to a python's mouth did bear, where they might play without nor dread nor fear. "Ho, friends and comrades, say what have we here? This thing like a dread python does appear. Is it a python's mouth, or shady grot? And will he swallow us, or will he not? Surely these clouds, reflective of the sun, are like the upper jaw of a python. The rays of red light on the ground that gleam, the lower jaw of the great python seem. The gaping caverns on the mountain side resemble the python's mouth, gaping wide. The high peaks of the mountains seem to be like the sharp fangs of the great monster. See, this broad and ample way before us spread is like the tongue of the great serpent dread. This deep and gloomy gorge may represent the widely gaping jaws of a serpent. This hot wind blowing up from underneath is like the monster's loathsome fiery breath. The putrid stink and vile fishy odour derives from the corpses he did devour. What though? And should he swallow us indeed, if we within his gaping jaws proceed, he will be slain as Baka was subdued, and we shall be from all danger rescued." Then, gazing at the face of Baka's foe, with merriment and clapping in they go. In this manner, unwittingly, forsooth, they took the false appearance for the truth, and spoke in terms contrary to the fact, and on that assumption prepared to act. But the illustrious knew very well who in the hearts of all creatures doth dwell, whereon he his determination made, his friends from their rash folly to dissuade. But while considering which course to take, his friends entered the belly of the snake with all the calves. He did not crush them yet, since the foe of Baka he did await, eager to wreak his vengeance, did remain awaiting him who had his kinsmen slain. When Krishna, who fearlessness doth afford, saw those for whom he is the only Lord, out of his sure preserving hand to slip, and held in death's irremediable grip. Like straw into a blazing fire thrown, they entered the belly of the python. Though for a moment he was in dismay, he did the rescue of the boys essay. What shall I do in this extremity, and thus avoid a dire calamity? How shall I the wicked of life deprive, and to protect the innocent contrive? Thereon into the demon's mouth he strode, along the tongue that stretched out like a road, whereon the gods behind the clouds exclaim, Alas, alas, in sore distress and pain. And Kangsa's henchmen were thereat rejoiced, and Ugga's friends their acclamation voiced. Which the almighty Krishna having heard, to save both himself and his friends was stirred. He soon enlarged himself to vast extent within the demon's throat, who was intent to crush them, and this tragedy prevent. Now, then, as Krishna's body did dilate, he did the demon's breath asphyxiate, which made his eyeballs bulge and shook his frame, and writhe convulsively in acute pain. Then, by the inward pressure, burst a hole in his head, thereby letting out his soul. When all the demon's vital breath had sped, out of the Brahma hole atop his head, Krishna upon his friends his glances poured, and the boys and the calves to life restored. Then Mukunda from out of the mouth wends, illustrious, surrounded by his friends. Then out of the body of the serpent emerged a wondrous light, self-radiant. Its refulgence dazzled and sparkled bright, and filled all the 10 directions with light. And as the dwellers of heaven looked on, it entered Krishna's body and was gone. And now the gods from their dwelling on high precipitated flowers from the sky, and each, according to their expertise, performed their diverse offices to please the Lord. The choristers of heaven sang, and the sound of drums and instruments rang. The Vidyadharas wrought sweet melodies, and danced the beautiful Apsarasis. The Vipras offered hymns unto the Lord, and all with joy the Mighty One adored. The birthless Brahma from his lofty sphere the music and the songs of praise did hear. He was filled with wonderment and surprise at the auspicious grand festivities, where great hymns of adulation proclaim the Lord's honour, glory, and high acclaim. He, descending on the earth, did alight, and was astonished at the wondrous sight, the dried-up carcass of the snake, O king, in Vrindavan was quite astonishing. The dwellers of Braja for many a day took it for a cave wherein they might play. Now all this occurred in his infancy, before the 6th birthday of Hari. But news of these events that did unfold after the passing of 1 year were told. The snake's salvation and their own rescue after 1 year was reported as new. O king, it should not be such a surprise for the illustrious one in human guise, since he is not constrained by nature's laws, and is of all effects the primal cause. The soul can be thus purified indeed, as by his touch sinful Agga was freed, and that by which sinners is never gained, a body of similitude attained. If once the divine image is enshrined of the illustrious one in the mind, and who their mental faculty employ in worship attain to eternal joy. And since within their hearts he doth abide, they are from impurity sanctified. What then of wicked Aghasura's sin, since the Lord personally entered in? Sri Sutta said, when he who was saved by the Yadu's Lord, who in the womb protection did afford, had heard of his Saviour's wonderful deed, he urged the son of Vyasa to proceed, and, O Brahmins, questioned of the event, eager in mind to hear the argument. The king said, O learned Brahmin, kindly tell me how a past act can be spoken of as now. What Hari did when he was 5 years old was after the passage of 1 year told. O teacher mine, great yogin, tell to me, for I have eager curiosity. All this from Hari's Maya must proceed. Wonderful, what else could it be, indeed? Though we among princes are unworthy, O teacher, we have gained blessed dignity, since by your grace we quaff nectar divine of Krishna's acts, ambrosia sublime. Sri Sutta said, O best among the blessed votaries, O foremost of the foremost devotees, when the king had thus made inquiry of the great sage hight Badarayani, the latter, lost in deep remembrance of the Infinite One, fell into trance. Slowly his external sense did regain, and to the prince began to speak again. Thus ends chapter 12 in book 10 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa.